What's up everyone, welcome back to ARTV. My name is John and today it's time for another installment of Ranked, my series where I obviously rank from worst to best in my own personal opinion a band's discography, their studio albums from worst to best, and today we're going to be taking a look at the heavy metal band from Huntington Beach, California, Avenged Sevenfold. I've been listening to this band since I was probably about 11 or 12 years old, and being 26 at this point in my life, it's clear that I've been around for a while. I've known a lot of their stuff, and ironically enough, I haven't always been like a full-length album guy with this band. It's been more of like certain songs from albums, so spending time with their discography in preparation for this video was certainly very interesting. My thoughts didn't exactly pan out like I thought they would, but that's kind of exciting at the same time. Remember while watching this video that it is all my personal opinion, and as I rank these 7 studio albums, you can feel free to let me know your thoughts on how you would rank them in the comment section down below. Drop a like on this video and consider supporting the channel on Patreon at the top, link down below to help videos like this keep coming on a monthly basis. Debut albums are often looked to as a band's defining work, at least in some cases. Sounding the 7th Trumpet is most definitely not that for Avenged. Is it a horrible record? No, not at all. It's just, vastly different than the band we've come to know in the years that followed. Dramatic passages flow forth from the debut album that paints biblical allegories, raw musical tenacity, and a very different vocal style from M. Shadows. That all sounds well and good, but the simple fact is this: they did all of those things so much better on their sophomore album, Waking the Fallen, and many of their other albums that followed. I genuinely dislike some of the tracks on here, including the lone single Warmness on the Soul. It stands out like a sore thumb in the track list and just feels so damn melodramatic for no good reason. I have a hard time calling to name specific tracks on Sounding the 7th Trumpet, even after letting it ruminate while prepping the video. After the introductory song, I do have a fondness for the 2 that follow, those being Turn the Other Way and Darkness Surrounding. It's also worth noting that the band's lineup hadn't fully come together at the time of recording the album, with Zachy Vengeance handling all of the guitar duties minus To End the Rapture, which was the first recorded appearance of new member at the time, Sinister Gates. Avenged Sevenfold locked into place while prepping their next release, adding both Gates and bassist Johnny Christ to round out the lineup. Sounding the 7th Trumpet is the attempted declaration of their sound, but it unfortunately comes up short and somewhat forgettable. Watch your tongue, have it cut from your hand. Save your life while keeping whispers unsaid. Children roam the streets now, orphans of war. Despite some blazing highs and mellow reflections, Hail to the King wields a heavy sword without the strength needed to carry out the execution. What I mean by that is that Avenged didn't exactly nail the landing while taking on more of a classic metal sound. This is the only full-length album to feature the drumming of Aaron Ilje, a talented guy that got far too much hate thrown his way. He's a solid drummer that's obviously very different than the Rev, and this album didn't really call for the dominating drum performances we had known from them in the past. Some of Hail to the King has a short-lived appeal to it, but there's genuinely some great smash hits that go unnoticed. Inconsistency in both tone and music drags it down overall though, opening strong with the impending doom of Shepherd of Fire and the anthem-bound title track, but falling short immediately after on the cheesy Doin' Time and one of the worst Avenged songs to date, This Means War. I wouldn't say this metal act are always one that I expect the strongest lyrics from, but Hail is certainly one I could single out as being weaker than usual in that department. Carrying on though, we did get some delectable guitars on Heretic, a Book of Revelation sounding gem with the epic Requiem, and a headbang-worthy solo on Coming Home. Sadly though, that's about all I can say super positively about the record. Even a chunk of those that I like still felt a bit off in some capacity. Need I bring up the Laughable Planets again? I'll leave it at that. Avenged tried their best with this sound, but the results were all over the map. Movies often divide fans and critics in the sense that the audience may love or hate something that the critics feel the complete opposite way about. I don't see it as much in music with albums, but I admittedly do find the self-titled album by Avenged to be one of those dividers. The aggregate site Metacritic has this one sitting at a shameful 53 out of 100, while fans often list this as one of their best releases. What sucks even further is that I can kinda see both sides of the argument, but at the end of the day, the self-titled album is kind of a mess. On the upside, Shadows has some truly incredible vocal moments, minus that tacky but intentional auto-tune on Lost. The Rev got some awesome songwriting creds and killed it on drums as per usual, with his pinnacle being the story-driven change of pace Brompton cocktail. Unpredictability might be what makes this album work for some, but the experimental and inconsistent tone feels too damn jarring more often than not. That seasick feeling that you might get while listening isn't always a negative. It's like heading into a storm and knowing that you have no control over the outcome. I'm definitely not crazy about Scream, a generic song with a flashy and rather pointless solo that really hasn't aged well. Their cover of Dear God to close out the album was definitely a weird choice, but I guess they kinda did their thing with it. At the end of the day, I'm about 50-50 with the self-titled album. Afterlife remains a fucking stellar classic. Unbound consistently gets plays because of its sheer grit and those almost eerie pianos. Plus you've got the epic 8-minute Little Piece of Heaven that remains a fan favorite to this day. Waking the Fallen wasn't my first full album experience with Avenged Sevenfold, but Chapter 4 from this very record is the first Avenged song that I ever heard. Thank you NASCAR Thunder 04 soundtrack. There isn't necessarily a ton to say about this record, other than the fact that it kicks tons of ass. Did that cover it? Yeah, I think we're good. No, I do have my issues with this one still, even though it is really good overall. I find Matt's screams to be a bit much in places, not exactly fitting the style of metalcore they were playing at the time. Thank God he got those vocal lessons in between albums, eh? That and the budget increases next time around really helped out, as some of the mixes on this album are straight up whack. Despite that, Second Heartbeat pounds away as a hypnotic 6-minute epic. Chapter 4 of course slaps as hard as ever with every single instrument sounding top notch, and the two-part I Won't See You Tonight still holds up relatively well. Give the album a play if you haven't dusted it off since your middle school days. It's certainly worth your time, even if it has its shortcomings. Avenged lifted the sheep's wool from their eyes on the stage and got super science-y and, space woke, I suppose. Spacebound ideas aren't exactly new to the rockers, but this outing saw a deeper fear and respect developing. Planets made it clear that Shadows and the rest of the band had a vested interest in life outside of planet Earth, and they really elevated the conversation on the stage. There's a wide assortment of influences that you'll pick up on as you listen, everything from their metalcore roots to symphonic metal, brass sections, and more. Creating God sounds like it's gonna be a Velvet Revolver song at first, for Christ's sake. The album really knows how to spin your head. I'm truly impressed with their new drummer, ex-Bad Religion Brooks Wackerman, as he pulls the trigger on chaos when it feels necessary, but also knowing how to keep things suspenseful and not oversell it every second of every song. Both Zachy and Sin fall into rhythm nicely, really finding new ways to finesse the inner workings of the album's mind. Even if you're not always focusing on the fact that this is a concept album about quote-unquote the stage, the world that we live in, and the scary changes that could happen in the future, you'll always have the exciting instrumentals to jam out to. The ambition is truly admirable, and upon revisiting with multiple listens while preparing this list, I was shocked to find how much I was loving a lot of what I heard. I suggest top-notch songs like Paradigm, The Stage of course, Roman Sky, and Sunny Disposition. Hell, if you love prog metal or prog in general, then you have to check out The Closing Moment Exist, which goes on for like 15 minutes and has a feature from Neil deGrasse Tyson himself.
God save us! God save us all!
When tragedy struck the Avenged family in December of 2009 with the passing of drummer Jimmy the Rev Sullivan, many suspected the heavy metal band wouldn't find a way to carry on. Tears came as I learned of his passing that sad day in my senior year of high school, and as the weeks passed, I began to wonder if a breakup was imminent, even though I knew they were in the process of creating the album that we now know as Nightmare. Despite this crushing grief the band was dealing with, they delivered a fantastic, compelling, and deeply emotional album that's simply hard to complain about. Some cuts have more depth than others and show off the band's chemistry in more interesting ways, but there really aren't many forgettable moments here. Even though I suspected this would be a softer album, it's pretty menacing and heavy minus moments like So Far Away. Have the tissues ready if you're planning to revisit that song though. Trust me. Nightmare launches us into the mentality of the record, serving as the ominous opening track that the Rev helped write and arrange. You can definitely feel his lasting impact on many of the drum arrangements as ex-Dream Theater drummer Mike Portnoy got behind the kit and stayed as true as possible to the Rev's original ideas for the album. The well-layered Buried Alive hits just as hard, if not harder, this day and age, and the climax of the album forms perfectly on the album closer, Save Me. Keep digging around and you'll find gold the more you investigate the nooks and crannies of Nightmare. It's a record that deserves more mainstream praise than it gets, but hey, I'll settle for giving it a glowing recommendation in the hopes that more of you check it out. Maybe it's because of the biblical allegories that fascinated me as a kid, or maybe it's because of the heart-rattling metal that saw these young dudes in Avenged trying a little bit of everything and absolutely killing it in the process. Granted, the loose concept of this album and the biblical city of Babylon is so much fun to hear about again and again. Party it up, live like no tomorrow, forget about the consequences, for tomorrow the city gets destroyed. Bad songs are simply missing in action on the band's third album, with every song in sync with what's next, never missing a beat, and keeping the perfect flow for over an hour. It's not an easy task to make a long record that feels consistently imperative to pay attention to, but somehow they do it all the way from the classic Wicked opener Beast in the Harlot through the cavern of guitars and chaos that is MIA. If you want loud, furious guitars that never let off the gas, City of Evil is for you. Looking for insane drum performances with plenty of drum fills and double bass pedal action? Then, once again, this album is right up your alley, it's for you. M. Shadows' new vocal techniques perfectly mesh with the style of City of Evil, ranging from desperate to demented over the course of 11 clutch tracks. There's an unwavering evil tone that never loosens its grip, which is a huge factor in its appeal, giving it the edge and lore needed for repeated listens even years later. Long live Babylon, the City of Evil. And with that, we conclude another episode of Ranked. Let me know what you think in the comments section down below. Do you agree with my list? Keep in mind it is just my opinion. There's no such thing as a definitive list, but I would love to know what you think and how you would rank the albums in the comments section down below. Next up is Queens of the Stone Age. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed the video today, and if you're excited for the next episode, make sure to subscribe if you were new in town, and if you want to, check out my top 10 Avenged Sevenfold songs at the link in the description down below, or in the card in the outro in just a second. Consider supporting me on Patreon at this link over in the annotation there. It helps the videos like this that are a lot harder to make to keep coming on a monthly basis. If you do want to check out my top 10 Avenged, then click this link right here, or tap right over here for the last episode of Ranked. All of my social media accounts can be found linked in the description, and I'll see you soon for more right here on ARTV.